our access to be able to move our bodies in the way that every physician, every physical therapist, every doctor all agrees this is what the shoulder should be able to do. When we put all those ranges of motion together, what we end up having is full access to the amazing bodies that we've been endowed with.
Kelly, whenever there is a debate of a fitness or a workout, primarily a layman categorizes a fitness or an exercise into either cardio or strength and fitness, or what you say, weight training and a resistance training workout. But you and I both know that there is two other pillars which are really important, which are mobility and flexibility. You are a trailblazer and an expert in this domain. I would like to know more about these two domains and why they are significant when it comes to individual health and fitness.
One of the things that we're looking at is thinking about what is the body supposed to be able to do. And if we just take a second and think about the oldest auntie you have in your family or the oldest grandmother you have in your family, chances are that person was not very strong, maybe never went to the gym, but lived to be 100 years old, could get up and down off the ground, carry babies, cook, interact with their community. And if we look at sort of this idea of durability, of living our lives fully and for the way that we would like to in our community that matters the most to us for our sort of individual families, the through narrative is, besides sort of disease and trying to avoid chronic disease, is really our access to be able to move our bodies in the way that every physician, every physical therapist, every chiro, every doctor all agrees this is what the shoulder should be able to do. This is what the hip should be able to do. And when we put all those ranges of motion together, what we end up having is sort of full access to the amazing bodies that we've been endowed with. And so when we discuss mobility, really what we're saying is, do you have access to all of the positions that your body should have access to? And can you control those positions? And number two, can you be pain-free in those shapes? And number three, can you use your body in the way that you want to? So you can occupy your role in your family, you occupy your role in your community, or occupy your role on the team. So I think many of us can appreciate that we've all had that experience. And it turns out, what we've sort of hyper-focused on is the need to control pain. And what we haven't focused on, even in the languages of strength and conditioning or true cardiorespiratory capacity, is looking at how well people move. And while we may lose some muscle mass, our bone density may change, what we don't have to lose is our ability to move freely and effortlessly. So range of motion doesn't have to change. And what we see is most people become interested in their range of motion if they're athletes because they may not be able to achieve a position or shape required for their sport or activity. Most people will come to understand their range of motion when suddenly they may have pain. And so pain is a great entree into understanding how our bodies work, but rarely do we put range of motion on the front of the needs and tasks. As long as I have beautiful abs and I'm stronger than you and I can bench press more than you, I'm fitter than you. And really what we're trying to do is recognize and give respect to the fact that the brain is a problem-solving machine. And if we're going to give it problems to solve, let's give it as many solutions as we can. And so having access to our native ranges of motion, and again, controlling those ranges, which is why yoga exists, Pilates exists, strength and conditioning exists. It's all about really just challenging our ability to maintain our position. So really what we're looking at is when I have pain or I'm unable to do something, what are the tools available to me to restore those positions and those native capacities?
So when I read your books, 4 books to be precise, there were 12 standards which you set for mobility and flexibility. I will just name it and just correct me if I'm wrong. The first standard is neutral feet, not pointing outwards and not collapsing inwards. Second is flat shoes. Third is properly trained thoracic spine. Fourth is good squatting technique. Fifth is good hip flexion. Sixth is good hip extension. Then is good ankle range of motion. Warming up and cooling down correctly, compression when necessary, no hot spots or pain, hydration, good jumping and landing techniques. So is this the bar we have to set when it comes to mobility and flexibility, right?
I think what you're describing is sort of our bias towards a set of runners, people who wanted to run. I think that is probably coming from the book we wrote about sort of running, ready to
Yeah.
run,
Yeah.
and really helping people understand, one of the things that happens is that, and this is a common phenomenon for, I think, most people, is we get very excited and we want to do the thing. And that's the most important thing, that we start to do the thing. We don't have to be perfect. Oftentimes, if we look at people running for fitness, which is a fine endeavor, we often find that they aren't prepared. They don't have the range of motion to run. They don't have the techniques to run. And what they do is they don't take advantage of our hundreds of years of watching elite athletes do their best. And so what we're always trying to do is say, how can we take the lessons of strength and conditioning, of sports and performance, and how might we rework those tools so that we could transform society? In fact, I would go a step further and say the highest calling of sports, the highest calling of competition, is to transform our communities and transform our society. And it's important that we understand that those things, if we don't take the lessons and transmute them into actionable steps for my mom, for my children, then sport just is about circus. It's about entertainment, which is fine. But instead, when we see people engaged in high-level competition or sport or performance, we really are starting to see positions and behaviors that are truly pressure tested, where we can see inputs and outputs more effectively. And so oftentimes when we are experts in certain domains in our life and then we want to become fit, we think, well, here's this easy thing to do. And what you do is you sit all day long and then you stand up and you're like, I'm going to go run. Meanwhile, that's not what every team does, every elite athlete does, not what every Olympian does. And I'm not saying you have to become an Olympic athlete, but we should be able to derive best practices or first principles out of